The hearing chamber was tense, packed wall to wall with press, aides, and committee members bracing for yet another high-stakes political showdown. C-SPAN cameras streamed live, while pundits across networks waited for the soundbite that would dominate headlines. Kash Patel, former Trump official and vocal conservative figure, sat stiffly at the witness table. His expression was confident but guarded, knowing this wasn't going to be a friendly line of questioning. He had faced Congress before, but today felt different. Across the room, Representative Jasmine Crockett adjusted her blazer and locked eyes with Patel. Her presence was commanding, unbothered by the national spotlight. The chair recognized her for 5 minutes. She leaned into the mix slowly, speaking with a deliberate edge. "Mr. Patel," she began, her voice calm but cutting through the silence. "You've presented yourself as a patriot, someone protecting the integrity of this country. But there's a side of you the American people haven't seen." The atmosphere shifted. Members straightened up. Patel tilted his head slightly, a nervous tick betrayed by the tightening of his jaw. Crockett continued, her words slicing clean. "You speak of loyalty and transparency, but your family's dealings tell a different story. Let's discuss your brother's defense contracts, the ones conveniently awarded during your tenure, the ones you never disclosed." Cash's face remained composed, but the flicker in his eyes gave away the storm forming behind them. He opened his mouth, but Crockett pressed forward. "Or maybe we can talk about your father's business, receiving government funding for tech infrastructure just weeks after you advised the Department of Defense on procurement strategies." A ripple moved through the audience behind the dais. Journalists began scribbling notes. Fingers danced across keyboards in real time. She reached for a thick manila folder beside her. "I have receipts, Mr. Patel, financial records, government filings. You want to keep this performance up? Or do you want to explain why your public service seems to have so richly benefited your private family interests?" Patel didn't answer. The lights above seemed harsher now. The hearing had only just begun, but the room already knew something had cracked open, and it wasn't going to be easy to seal it back up. Gasps swept through the hearing room like a sudden gust of wind, sharp and uncontrollable. A few aides shifted uncomfortably, while the press gallery buzzed with barely contained excitement. The accusation had been dropped like a grenade, and all eyes turned to Kash Patel, waiting to see if he'd defuse it or detonate. His lips curled into a tight grimace as he leaned forward, gripping the table's edge with white-knuckled fists. "That's a damn lie," he snapped, his voice louder than intended, echoing off the chamber walls. He slapped his palm flat against the table, startling some in the room. "My family has nothing to do with defense contracts you're dragging them through the mud for." A headline. His breathing was shallow now, eyes darting between Crockett, the chairman, and the sea of cameras that were now broadcasting his every move to millions watching at home. Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. Her tone was composed, bordering on surgical. "Mr. Patel, I'm not accusing you, I'm reading the evidence. Your brother's name appears on 3 separate government contracts issued in 2020. The dates line up precisely with policy recommendations you made to the Department of Defense. And this," she lifted a printed email, "is your message to a defense subcontractor, referencing a guaranteed deal through Dad. Those are your words. You want to explain that?" Murmurs erupted on both sides of the aisle. Some committee members looked stunned, others leaned into their microphones, whispering to aides. A Republican member tried to interject, "Mr. Chair, point of order," but was quickly overruled. No one wanted to break the spell of the moment, not when the dam was threatening to burst. Patel's jaw clenched tighter. He pointed a trembling finger across the table. "This is political assassination," he barked, eyes gleaming with anger. "You dug into my family because you couldn't find anything on me. This is low even for you." Crockett raised an eyebrow, calm and cool. "What's low?" she said, her voice slow and deliberate. "Is abusing your public position to funnel wealth to your relatives, then lying under oath about it. That's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal." The room tensed again, this time heavier. Colder, the chair of the committee looked visibly uncomfortable but didn't step in. Crockett sat back, crossing her arms as the folder lay. unopened before her. She didn't need to read it, she knew the weight it carried. Patel sat frozen, seething, but cornered. The silence was suffocating now, as the entire country watched a man who had once wielded immense power begin to unravel. On live television, Kash Patel's composure finally cracked, his face, flushed with fury and humiliation, twitched with the effort of holding back words he could no longer control. He jolted upright from his seat, the chair screeching harshly against the marble floor. "Enough," he roared, his voice cracking, raw with emotion. His hands trembled as he pointed toward Jasmine Crockett, his fingers shaking not just from rage, but from something deeper, panic. "Perhaps, you don't get to do this," he barked. "You don't get to drag my family into this political circus. My father, my brother, they're not on trial here." His chest rose and fell rapidly, and for a second, he looked less like the polished political operator and more like a man losing control of his own narrative. His eyes darted toward the media gallery, where cameras were trained on him like sniper lenses, capturing every word, every vein bulging in his neck. Crockett sat still, her arms resting calmly on the desk, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Patel," she said, her voice steady and quiet but amplified through the mic. "You inserted your family into this. The moment their businesses benefited from your position in government. The public has a right to know who profits when decisions are made behind closed doors." His jaw clenched and his breath hitched. "You've crossed the line," he muttered, more to himself than to her. He turned abruptly, refusing to look at the chair, the panel, or anyone else in the room. As he stormed past the exit, the silence was broken only by the rapid-fire clicking of camera shutters. Flashes erupted behind him, freezing his escape in still frames that would headline every major news outlet before sundown. As the heavy wooden doors swung shut behind him, the echo rang throughout the chamber like a gavel, final and foreboding. The chair tried to regain control, calling for order, but the moment had already eclipsed procedure. Crockett remained seated, unmoved. She adjusted her microphone slightly and glanced at the thick folder still on the table in front of her. She didn't even open it. She didn't have to. "The truth doesn't need to scream," she said softly, almost to herself, but loud enough for every mic to catch it. The room fell quiet again, not with the silence of uncertainty, but the hush that follows a reckoning. Within minutes of Kash Patel's dramatic exit, the internet exploded. Clips of the hearing were spliced, subtitled, and shared across every platform imaginable. Twitter, now X, was flooded with hashtags like #Kash Meltdown, #Crockett vs Patel, and #Family Secrets Exposed. TikTok creators began dissecting the confrontation, frame by frame, while YouTube thumbnails blared Patel's face mid-shout with titles like "He lost IT," "Kash Patel storms out after Crockett bombshell." News anchors scrambled to go live, cutting into their scheduled programming to cover the story that had just changed the political landscape. That evening, cable news featured wall-to-wall coverage. Liberal networks framed it as a long overdue reckoning for an unaccountable former official, while conservative pundits cried foul, calling the exchange a public ambush. Still, the documents were there, stamped, signed, and impossible to ignore. Several outlets, including independent watchdogs, began releasing their own analysis of the financial records Crockett had alluded to, verifying that Patel's family businesses had seen a marked increase in government funding during his time advising national security policy. It wasn't just smoke anymore. There was fire, and it was growing. Patel issued a brief statement through his spokesperson later that night, calling the hearing a political hit job and asserting his family had always acted with integrity. But the damage had already been done. His allies on Capitol Hill were silent, some refusing to answer reporters' questions, others dodging entirely. Several were seen leaving closed-door meetings with grim expressions, clearly aware that fallout was coming. Meanwhile, Representative Jasmine Crockett was calm, composed, and everywhere. She appeared on MSNBC within hours of the hearing, sitting across from Rachel Maddow, who praised her poise and preparation. "I didn't expose Kash Patel because I wanted a viral moment," Crockett said during the interview. I exposed him because public trust is built on accountability. And when officials use their power to enrich their families in secret, that trust is broken. Asterisk, the interview was clipped and spread just as quickly as the original confrontation. Overnight, Crockett became a trending figure not just in politics, but across culture, hailed by some as a truth teller, a warrior for transparency, a rising star unafraid to confront the powerful head-on. Even those outside the political world, celebrities, activists, and business leaders began weighing in, lending support or criticism, further fueling the frenzy. Asterisk, by morning, congressional watchdog groups had already announced their intention to launch formal investigations into Patel's financial entanglements. Committee members from both sides were suddenly issuing carefully worded statements, trying to get ahead of the momentum building behind the scandal. What began as a single exchange had turned into a national reckoning, one that would define reputations, alter careers, and perhaps even ripple into future elections. Asterisk, and at the center of it all, a woman with a folder she never had to open.